Interesting. Why can't I hear? Let me figure this out.
Because we're all muted.
Good evening, Rabbi.
Hello, testing. Good. Okay, it's working. Nice to see everyone. Here we go. Pausing. Yeah, I'll just keep going. Nice to see everyone. How's everyone surviving?
So far, so good.
Surviving.
Okay, middle of the holidays. Why not have a class between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? What are you people thinking?
What else would we be doing?
I start making it look like rabbis don't really need to work. It's very nice. Hello, Linda, Richard and Ellen, Shelley, Joan, Irv. Very good. I'm just getting more stuff ready while we're doing this. Okay. And chat. Good. Okay. Very good. Intro.
Rabbi,
I can hear.
thank you for your speech.
Oh, thank you. It's a. Do you have a relative who you think you have to you've lost to Judaism or away from Judaism?
Probably more than one.
And so do I. I have 4 children.
There you go.
Yeah.
I have 3 and I have 3 grandchildren.
Yeah, don't give up. Don't give up. I know for some people that's a depressing sermon, and for some people it's a sermon of hope. But there's no one in the middle. You either hate or you love it. So I like.
Have you heard anything about the Cantor's home?
No, I don't want to bother him because he probably doesn't know anything. You know, he probably can't get a hold of anything or anything. I don't want to bother him yet, but I will find out. You know, it's obviously, it sounds like it's going to take a while to figure out how bad it is. He's not there. He's in North Carolina, which ironically, I think he might get hit.
Following him.
I think it looks like he's gonna get hit on the other end because I think it's going to go into South Carolina tonight.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what they said.
We should have some wins on the 2nd is when I'm looking. Yeah, I'm looking when are we going to see something? And we might be on the 2nd. Yeah.
But we have cousins who just moved to Fort Myers.
Oh, hey, Fort Myers.
Yes.
That took a hit.
They're currently in a shelter.
Oh, are they? They didn't get out.
They got out. They're in the shelter. They're not in their house. They're in the shelter.
They're in a shelter in Fort Myers. They didn't get out of
No,
Florida.
they didn't get out.
Yeah. How are they doing? Do we know how their house is and all?
Well, a neighbor's been reporting. So they've got about 6 inches of water on the first floor, which is 7 feet above ground.
Wow.
And they're not on the ocean. They're not on water.
Yeah.
They're about 2 miles in.
2 miles in. The roads are still flooded, so they can't even get back.
I didn't see the pictures, but I heard that
Oh.
Tampa Bay dry, what it does is it takes water from, so I guess the Tampa Bay, the bay was empty. I know someone was there and they're saying how that you could walk and people are walking into Tampa Bay because there's no water in it,
Yeah.
which is very dangerous, by
It
the way.
came back, yeah.
It did come back. It's a fascinating,
Devastating.
as you watch the eye by the shore, some of it's being brought out and some of it's being brought in, and the water finds a way. Fascinating.
Your Mother Nature is not happy with anybody.
No, I think, this is the first, I mean, we've been saying it for a few years, the extreme weather, but this one more than all the rest, the whole thing about warm water and what that means for, you can't just call it an act of God anymore. That we have something to do with it.
It's an act of man.
It's an act of man. Yeah, I can tell you, like 20 years ago, I used to give sermons on acts of God. I'm not so sure now that we know more, I'm not so sure there's such thing.
We can't blame him.
Right. Yeah. I'd like to blame, God for hurricanes, but I apologize since, I have a direct line. Yeah, I apologize.
That's right.
Do?
And then God said, it's your fault. So
Have
what do you
been
do?
following Yeshiva University's ban for the
Yeah, that happened right before the hurricane started coming. So I got a lot
they
of
banned all
right.
clubs.
Our daughter's a professor at the graduate school in psychology.
Really?
All the graduate schools are supporting the organization.
And they have those.
Yeah. It's
So-
that's what we're
Hard.
hearing. And it was interesting. They thought the Supreme Court, because it's so far right, would have supported them, but the Supreme Court didn't go with them. That's a decision to not listen or to not accept it. They thought that would be what protects them. But it didn't.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, it doesn't look good for the masses. My kids.
No.
That's my anti-Jewish kids. And again, I don't think they're truly anti-Jewish. I think they're just anti-our Jewish. So
Just-
but this doesn't help.
They're probably anti-organized religion.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and YU certainly didn't help the cause for our liberal kids. So it's all Neil's fault. That's all I know for sure.
Damn right.
Yeah, we're doing
Damn right.
It's
Hey,
all Neil's fault.
They got too aggressive. That what I was reading is if they had just taken it through the courts, they would have probably won because the Supreme Court's very into religious freedom.
Right.
But they tried to run it up
Quickly.
quickly through, what do they call that? The silent docket or the
Yeah.
second docket. And that's where they got into trouble.
Yeah. The Supreme Court doesn't like to be used.
Yeah.
You heard Alito today say, we know we're in trouble when they're questioning the integrity of the Supreme Court. He kind of says you're not allowed to question the integrity of the Supreme Court. But, it's a new world we're living in. It's all Neil's fault.
They should
Damn
act with
right.
integrity.
I'm messing the world up pretty good these days. I got big plans to mess it up.
Okay, Neil, I'm in.
I
Ah.
might. Yeah,
Any
I can't get on Sanibel Island. I don't know.
well,
what I'm gonna do for
that's what I was going
break.
to say is that like Joan Charleston,
Right.
right? You can't get on or off, right? There's certain places that are not
with a
tripped.
boat. The only
Yeah.
way you can get off is a boat.
Or a helicopter.
Yeah,
How many people have a
or
helicopter?
swim.
But
Swim.
I'm not sure how many people vacated before.
I don't know. It's
Joan's not down there yet, right?
huh? No,
Joan-
I don't think
they're
no.
not down there.
But it's I don't think so. But it's interesting. A lot of people who were really caught were not evacuated. Like I'll talk to people because you assume.
Up in Tampa.
Right. So what happened was a bunch of people got, really trapped there. We're not told to evacuate. Right. Exactly. They thought it was Tampa. Then it went south at the last minute and those people were caught there. So what are you going to do?
People went down to Fort Myers.
To get out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See how I'm messing with the world?
Yeah,
I sent
it's-
people down to Fort Myers. I'm planning on rupturing a pipeline.
oh, that's right. Where's Irene?
Oh, she's in Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay. She's not down there. Okay.
Yeah, but they won't tell her for insurance reasons yet, the status of the condo. Like the whole building.
Yeah.
Because they need to do an
What city is she
assessment.
in? Neil, what city?
Sanibel Island.
Oh, she's on Sanibel.
Sanibel Island. That's our sister city. That's our Bethel Adult Ed sister city, is
Yeah,
Sanibel.
yeah.
Yeah.
We will need to start a fund, save Sanibel.
You know what? We're actually working on an email about helping out Florida. Yeah. So, okay. Any final announcements before I get started, Neil?
Yes. What do they want to say to people? Stay tuned, the beginning of October, or no, after the holidays. Once the holidays are over, we were gonna have our fall speaker series, then our winter speaker series. And we got the Israeli consulates coming to Pittsburgh
Good.
on Monday. He'll be there on Monday, then he's gonna speak to the high school on Tuesday. Rabbi, you gotta let our sister congregation here in Mount Lebanon know.
Yeah.
We've got Judd Newborn speaking, who's this, like, the guy who wrote this book, The White Rose, which is like this guy's like big time. We got a grant from the Federation to do it. We got George, we got Peter,
Yeah.
my mother-in-law, so everybody better show up for my mother-in-law. So that's all I have to say that I can think of right now. I
Well,
got Danny Schiff coming. He wants to talk about the future of Judaism.
Yeah, I think he wants like a rebuttal because this is the first Rosh Hashanah he was in services. He's
Yeah.
never been to my Rosh Hashanah services before. So I see him come in and sit down like, oh, he's going to like this sermon. And I'm just thinking to myself, and because we actually had an adult dad with him on the future of the conservative movement, that's my topic on Kol Nidre, and I'm talking about our talk. But yeah, he's going to want the last word, of course. So I can't imagine he was happy with what I said. So yeah, not maybe.
Oh, he'll get over. I told him to get over it. Already, that's all. There's 24 books. I thought there was only 5 books.
Okay, we're going to talk about it tonight. Here we go. Good segue. That's what I love about Neil. He's like my plant. We are getting started at 7:06. It's July. No, it's July. It's September 29th, 2022 at 7:07 p.m. And we're an intro to Judaism. And although this is supposed to be on a Sunday morning, we don't have a lot of Sunday mornings during the holidays. And so why not on the Thursday between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur have a class? This is on the 24 books of the Bible, which should be a question. Now, Neil is right. How many books are there? By the way, not 5, but there's actually like 31. So I'm going to show it to you tonight. Okay, so here's the deal. When you talk about the Bible, first of all, many people use Bible and Torah interchangeably. And we had a class on the Torah. And Moses goes up to Mount Sinai, goes up for 40 days and 40 nights and comes down with the Torah. Now, the Torah for us is the 5 books of Moses: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. All right. So the 5 books of Moses. But when we say the Bible, we use now Jewishly speaking, that usually means what other people call the Old Testament. Now, Jews don't like calling it the Old Testament because then that means there's a new and improved one. So we don't like to say the Old Testament. But when I talk to mixed crowds, I just said the Old Testament and they know what I'm talking about. Because if I say to a Jew Bible, they think Torah. And I'm going to even show you tonight where this book that I use, which is falling apart so you can't even see the cover, also interchangeably uses the word Bible and Torah, and they get it wrong too. So even authors of books for Introduction to Judaism get it wrong. But Bible for tonight's purposes is the Old Testament, or you might call it the Holy Scriptures, or you might call it the Tanakh. Now, Tanakh, and I'm going to use the chat box to show it to you. Okay, Tanakh, Tanach. So it'll pop up in your screen. Tanakh. That's also synonymous with the Hebrew Bible. Okay, now I'm going to call it the Hebrew Bible, because if I just say the Bible, I might be talking about John and Matthew, or the thing you find in your hotel room, right? Which does have our Bible in it, and some other books. So, but Tanakh is usually, so the Jews who the know-it-all Jews would say, oh, it's in the Tanakh. And by the way, and I've talked about this before, we said that Torah can be any type of God speaking to us as Torah. So I've heard many rabbis refer to it's in the Torah, and they don't mean it's in the 5 books of Moses. They could mean it's in the prophets and Isaiah, but that's technically wrong. The truth is there's Torah, and Torah is part of the Tanakh. And now that you saw the word Tanakh, what is Tanakh? Torah. I'm going to just put it into it. Nevi'im. Bad typing. Ketuvim, and every word I spelled wrong, but here it goes. If you look in your chat box, take Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim, TNK, it's an acronym. Tanakh is an acronym. Tanakh is Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim. Torah, 5 books of Moses. Nevi'im, prophets. Ketuvim, writings. Tanakh is the 3 part. So Tanakh is 3 letters put together and spells Tanakh. And so when we say that the Bible, and that's the other thing about the Bible, right? When I study with someone who wants to be Jewish, when they're coming from Christianity, and I can't tell you how many, I've had over the years students who, what happens is they're in their church and they start studying the Bible, and they really study the Bible, and they're like, hey, wait a second, we're in the wrong religion. And then they come to me. They know their Bible. You answer the door and there's these 2 guys with black suits and black ties, and they're like, do you know what it says in the book of Isaiah, chapter 33:1? Your answer probably is no, I don't know what it says. But you know what you say instead? Say, let's look it up in the original. And that usually gets rid of them. If you say, let's look in the Hebrew. But the idea is, okay, Neil, what do you want?
Got a story I gotta tell. So I was at
Okay.
the Mormon place. And what's it called? Like I did the tour of the Mormon Center
Yeah,
in Salt Lake.
Mormon tabernacle thingy.
Yeah, and so somebody quoted from the book of Isaiah.
Hmm.
And I said,
Book of
oh,
Mormon.
They
I
love the
know
book of
this
Isaiah.
part.
Yes.
I know this part. This is like the whole suffering servants part.
Yeah.
Because ages ago, I took a course with Dr. Bronner on the book of Isaiah. And then I look and the person looks at me and he goes, well, I actually haven't read the book of Isaiah.
Okay. Yeah, but they know their Bible. When I have a class and I have like a mixed class, I look at the Christians. I'm like, okay, I don't know where it is. It's somewhere in Leviticus or Numbers. And they're like, they know the verse, But the funny thing for Jews, the Bible is not Judaism. I've said this before when we studied Torah for a moment, and I just said this to my kids. I had all the kids home and we had a little, we always have a Jewish argument now because that's what kids do. And so or at least kids of rabbis. And I'm like, we are not the religion of the Bible, even though they call us the people of the book. That book is not a Jewish book. I mean, it's our beginnings, it's our source, it's where we come from, but you can't learn how to be Jewish from the Bible. You can study the Bible, the Bible backwards and forwards, every word. First of all, if you followed the Bible word for word, you'd go to jail. There's so many times you'd be breaking Jewish law and American law if you're not just killing little animals, killing your daughters and rebellious sons. But the idea is Judaism, next month is on the Talmud, but Judaism, Christians, Muslims, and Jews all share the Old Testament. And then we all have our New Testament. They have the New Testament. The other one has the Quran, and we have the Talmud. That's Jewish law. So it's very confusing when someone says, well, that's biblical law. And that's what I explain to my kids. That's biblical law, but that's not the same thing as Jewish law. So, but the Bible is important. I am not claiming the Bible is not important. And even if I believe in God, which I do most of the time, and I accept that the Bible is holy, the Holy Scriptures, I'm okay with that. It doesn't mean that because it says it in there, that's what we do. So let's talk about what it is physically. Here it goes. Oh, I know this is going to be really hard for you, but I'm going to try. Okay, I'm going to do this. Spotlight. It's going to be a little bigger. Okay, and I'm going to put my book up here. Okay. Now, is it backwards for you? It's backwards for me. Is it backwards for you? I don't think it is.
No, it's not, Rabbi.
Okay, good. For me, it's backwards. Here it goes. Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim, TNK. Now it says the 24 books of the Bible, but look closely at the 24 books of the Bible. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you might have heard of before. Genesis, God looks at Nevi'im, Nevi'im, the prophets. Again, it's backwards for me. Joshua, Judges. But look at number 8. Samuel 1 and 2. I call that 2 books. 9, Kings 1 and 2. Look at number 13. There are 12 prophets in number 13. And then 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 is Ezra and Nehemiah, what we're studying on Wednesday mornings now. And then 24, which no one ever studies, but we will, the book of Chronicles 1 and 2. If you add the 24 plus 25, 26, add another 11, 37, 38, 39. It's like 39 or 40 books, really, just with this list. Now, remember, the Christians, the Catholics, have an Old Testament. I will stop spotlighting so I can see your beautiful faces. The Catholics actually add Maccabees, the book of Maccabees, into their list as well. I simply say about the book of Maccabees until we get to this in our section today. I'll just say the book of Maccabees didn't make the cutoff date, but that would be taking God out of the picture. So, but what book of Maccabees is later than all the books that we have in our 24 books. And the Catholics, since they wrote their Bible later or put their Bible together, book of Maccabees makes it into their Old Testament. So if you look in an Old Testament Catholic version, you'll find the book of Maccabees floating in there, but not in ours. So there are 24 books of the Bible, and there are 5 books of Moses, the prophets, the writings. let's talk about who wrote them. Okay, I'm going Orthodox for a moment. If I'm Orthodox, Moses goes up in the Mount Sinai, comes down with what? The 5 books of Moses, not the prophets and the writings. So we're going to say that's the word of God, written by God. Even like, well, the second one, the first one, God writes, the second one, Moses has to write because he wasn't supposed to drop the first 2. And then comes the prophets. Now the prophets, right? Joshua, Judges, Samuel, Kings, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, blah, 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 supposedly are written by those guys. Like Isaiah wrote Isaiah, even though Isaiah probably was written by 4 different guys. And so that would be, that these are prophets. And what are prophets? Someone who spoke, God spoke to prophets, and prophets spoke to kings or to us. So those are prophets. Now the writings are a little different. Psalms, Proverbs, Job, Song of Songs, Ruth. That is, someone wrote those books. Even the book of Esther. Esther didn't write the book of Esther. Someone wrote the book of Esther. Someone wrote, King David wrote Psalms. Remember, I'm going Orthodox for you. King David wrote Psalms. Solomon wrote Proverbs, Song of Songs, Ecclesiastes. So different people wrote it. Now, all of the 24 books are holy, the Holy Scriptures. Either God wrote it or God inspired, but supposedly these 24 books are the holy books. If it doesn't make it into the 24 books of the Bible, it is important, it's Jewish, but it might not be authoritative. And I usually confuse people when I talk about this. Authoritative means it's holy. Don't throw it away. You ever get something from you go on Chabad or Aish and you print it up and says, you can't throw this away. It's got God's name in it, right? So Jews are not really supposed to throw away the Bible. That's why my Geniza, my office, is filled with these books that everyone moved during the pandemic. So what do you do when you move? You drop all your books off at the rabbi's office, and anything that's a Bible or a prayer book, and again, biblical. So if you drop me off the book of Esther, I'm not supposed to throw away the book of Esther, ironically, even though God's name is never mentioned in the book of Esther, because it's from the Holy Scriptures. It's biblical. So the 24 books of the Bible, when I explain it to Christians or to Jews, is that this is our origin story. Now, by the way, I think one of our classes coming up that, when Neil's trying to figure out the next, series of tough questions, one of them will be why the stories are so flawed. I mean, horrible stories about patriarchs and kings. The prophets are all loony birds and left-handed. Left-handed people. But the idea here is that the Bible really, if you really should do, like, if you find a character in the Bible, you really should do the opposite. You'll probably do much better if you do the opposite of what our forefathers did, and how to treat your wife, how to treat your child, how to treat your everyone. So, but we do believe, Jewishly speaking, these are holy. They come from God. And even if you question God, and we're going to talk about criticizing the Bible, but not the same way you use criticism. But the idea is the 24 books of the Bible are kind of our oldest book. Now, since the Bible has come out, it's kind of an old book, we have found older stories than the Bible. The Noah story existed before Noah existed. Gilgamesh stories, Assyrian, Akkadian stories of, so there are repeated stories. There are problematic books in the Bible. Those of you who studied with my Wednesday morning class may have heard the Song of Songs. It's a sex manual, talks lots about breasts and other places on bodies and dwelling among the lilies. Those aren't lilies. And, so if you're a prude like I am, it's tough. Again, the book of Esther has no mention of God's name. So the Bible leaves us with more questions than answers. And that's why we needed the Talmud, which is next month's class, but we needed a Jewish interpretation of the Bible. But we're not going to get around that it's biblical. The Talmud will always say, is it rabbinic or biblical? Which one is it? Because if the rabbis themselves say, well, we made it up, it's not as important as God said it. Now, I told you that, okay, So we did this Torah. Maybe you came with me when we did the tour of the synagogue, when I did virtually, if a couple people showed up. I'm going to spotlight again, show you my book. Here we go. Let me get to spotlight. Okay, here we go. There it is. Okay. One of my favorite pages in this book. And by the way, preparing for this class, I realized I couldn't figure out what the problem was, but I found out the problem. Okay, so there's a page in this book. Okay, you can see like a list of letters. I'll try to stop moving so you can see a little. Aleph 42,377, and it goes all the way to the bottom. It says 792,077 letters in the Torah, and it shows a guy writing a Torah. So even though this chapter, remove spotlight, even though this chapter is on the Bible, they get into this 792,000 letters. And I'm like, 792,000 letters. Is that in the Torah or is that in the Bible? And by the way, it's in neither. So I did a little research on this. There's a song out there in the Hasidic world that talks about the letters of the Torah. And they say there's 600,000 letters in the Torah. Well, that's not true. But it sounds good because we love the number 600,000, right? 600,000 left Israel, 600,000 is a good number for our people. And so this is before there were computers and before someone's counting each letter. Nowadays it's really easy to count letters in a Torah because you can just go on Safari and count the letters or words in a Torah because computers do them much better. But there are scribes who write the Torah. They know how many words are in the Torah and letters because they can't get it wrong. And it turns out that although the song says 600,000 letters in the Torah, it is not 600,000 letters. And when I say Torah, I mean just the 5 books of Moses, right? Not the Tanakh, not the N and the K, not the prophets' writings, just that scroll that. Say yes, thank you, Shelley. Mine is, soft covered, but I did bring JPS home for me. So back to, so with the Torah, we read Shabbat, holidays, that if I unrolled it, it would be the size of the building. The 5 books of Moses, it's not 600,000 letters. Now, the number 792,077, that's not right either. Saadia Gaon, one of the most famous rabbis in history, said there are 792,077 letters in it, in the Torah. He's actually wrong too. Maybe he had. Now, here's an interesting thing that no rabbi in the old days could say. Maybe his version of the Torah had 792,077 letters. And we're going to talk about different versions of the Torah tonight, as in Dead Sea Scrolls kind of thing, and older. I have something older than Dead Sea Scrolls. But that is the Torah we have today. They'll just say he got it wrong, and the song is wrong. There's about 304. I could look it up again on my internet, but it's like about 304,000 letters in the Torah, and there's an exact number. Because every scribe who writes a Torah has to get the number right, because if one letter's wrong, if you scan it, and by the way, that's how they do it now. They scan when they want to check a Torah out. They're, in the old days, guy looking at each letter, right? Now they just go like this with a scanner, and they can scan, and if there's a problem, the scanner will pick it up. It's a much easier day. Writing the Torah doesn't get easier. Little Torah, you're making each little letter, but making sure it's correct at the end, you scan it. They actually have a computer that scans each Torah because they know if one letter's missing, can't use that Torah, right? You've got to find the missing letter. So unfortunately for Saadia Gaon, not true, not 792,000. It's about 300,000, 304,000 letters. He couldn't be that wrong. Even the Dead Sea Scrolls, you're not going to double the number. So there's something wrong with his version. He probably liked that number or guessed at it because he didn't actually spend his time writing every letter, counting every letter. So the Bible we have today is called the Masoretic text. I'm going to write that in our chat box just in case you're wondering what I just said. Masoretic. There it is. Masoretic text. It was supposedly written by the Masoretes. Okay. Every word I spell wrong. Masoretes. Okay. So who are the Masoretes? The Masoretes are, we don't know. So let's say the year 800. Now Maimonides, around the same time in the world. Maimonides is trying to make Judaism easier for the world. I've said this many classes. Maimonides is like, oh, Jews are confused, so I'm going to write the Guide to the Perplexed. Jews can't study the Talmud. I'm just going to give you the list of laws in the Talmud. The Masoretes also saw a problem. They said, everyone has their own version of the Bible. This is before the printing press, right? You want to go to rabbi school, don't know an answer? Before the printing press, number one answer in rabbinical school, in your conservative rabbinical school, sorry, not in Orthodox rabbinical school, but in conservative rabbinical school, whenever you don't know an answer, just say it was before the printing press. You have a 50% chance of getting that question right. Because if it's before the printing press, as much as we want to think we're studying the same Bible that they studied, yeah, this was a handwritten document. Everyone had a different copy. When I studied the Talmud from 2,000 years ago, rabbis will say, well, it says in Isaiah 13:1. I'm like, I can't find it. I got to look at 13:3, 12:17 or something. It's somewhere near there, but it's very rarely where it is for us. So the Masoretes are supposedly these Essenes, these hill people. they're like monks, Jewish monks, and they established the Bible we have today, about the year 800. So if you found a Bible before the year 800, and we do have copies and versions, they could disagree with each other. Not like there's 9 commandments, but and we're going to see in the Dead Sea Scrolls tonight, I'm going to show you some Dead Sea Scrolls, that they can differ in some word phrasing, but it won't be terribly. I have a version in the Septuagint, another version. Actually, I'm going to go to it right now. But the idea is that there are different versions of the Bible once you go before 800. But after the year 800, we now have the Masoretic text, the one we have. So if you say it's in, I just opened up Ezekiel chapter 40, verse 9, everyone should be in the same place. Yeah, but that's only because we're all following the Masoretic text. But that's not the oldest Bible. A little blasphemous what I'm about to say, but this is the basis of the conservative movement. The conservative movement starts 100 years ago, plus 50. But 100 years ago, the conservative movement starts, and it starts in Germany, and it's called the Positive Historical Movement. It had nothing to do with being happy, positive, or it was about studying the Bible critically and understanding that what we have today is not the oldest version, and that we can actually ask the question while we're studying the Bible: when was it written? This book. When was that book written? Who was it written by? You're going to study it critically. So when I use the word critical, I don't mean like Jews who are critical about everything. I mean, or criticism. Biblical criticism means you're going to study it critically. You're going to look at it literally, like a piece of literature. And so when the conservative movement started, it was called the Positive Historical Movement, and we would study older versions of the Bible. And one of the most famous old version of the Hebrew Bible is the Septuagint. Do I want to type it? Fine, I'll type it. Fine, Septuagint. CPT, Septuagint. Okay, Septuagint. Septuagint means 70. It's Greek. By the way, it was the Greek translation of the Bible. Not only is it the Greek translation of the Bible, it's written around the year 70. Okay, so it all goes, don't believe what I'm about to say, but it's a very big tradition. 70 rabbis went into 70 rooms for, I think it was like 70 days in the year 70, around the destruction of the Second Temple. And they all came back and they had the exact same Bible, which of course is impossible. But that's the story, and I'm sticking to it. And it was the Greek translation of the Bible that we have in hand. If I was in my office, not this office, but home, I would point to it on my shelves, and we have a Septuagint, and we studied it in rabbi school. We studied the Septuagint because it was a 2,000-year-old version of the Bible. And we would take that Bible, that version of the Bible, the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Bible, compare it to our Bible and find some differences. It's kind of neat. One of the most famous ones, if you're a service goer, you come to shul on Saturday morning, I don't know, you ever hear the prayer, Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha Od Yalucha Selah, Ashrei. It's a long, miserable prayer, right? And you're going back and forth. And if, God forbid, the leader says the wrong line, the whole congregation doesn't know what to do because they've been doing the the congregation lines for so long, even though the leader, they're always like, oh, the leader should learn every line, but the congregation only learns their lines. But back to it. It's an acrostic. It's Psalm 145. Psalm 145 is an acrostic. It's supposedly written by David. It says A, B, C, D. It's like when you wrote your Mother's Day card when you were 8 years old. A is for awesome, and B is for the best, and C is for cookies, and and D is whatever. So it's an acrostic saying, an acrostic praising God, Ashrei, Bechol, Gadol, A, B, C, or Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Daled, Hey. But there's a problem. It's the whole alphabet except for one letter. It's missing the Nun. Now, just trust me, if you want to take a prayer book out, if this was a 2-hour class instead of a 1-hour class, I would take the prayer book out and show it to you. But if next time you're in services, it's also in the Machzor. If you come to high holiday services, you will see that the Nun is missing. It's actually kind of easy because LMN is actually in Hebrew, Lamed Mem Nun, Samech, which looks like an O, not a coincidence. LMNO is all in the Hebrew language. The N is missing. It's missing. So for 2,000 years, the rabbis would say, oh, why is the Nun missing? Oh, it's because it nafal, starts with an N, it fell out. Oh, it said something about this, and and God took it out. Turns out that the Septuagint has the N in it. The 2,000-year-old Bible, and by the way, the Dead Sea Scrolls, but we're not there yet, has the N line in it. Oh, wait a second, but I thought God left it out. No, the Masoretes left it out. But the Masoretes text that we've been studying for 2,000 years is not the oldest text. And this throws those of us who grew up Orthodox, this would like, oh, this is blasphemy. Now you're going to be like, you're going to say that what we've been saying for 1,500 years is not exactly, like, does it mess with you if you found out that the Bible we have is not the original? That there's an older version. Now, the N line didn't say anything great. It was just another praise of God. What's his name? Zuckerman, Miles Zuckerman. Okay, cool Jew. If you want to know a cool Jew, you should know Miles Zuckerman. So Miles Zuckerman, listen closely. He does this. I think he's the coolest guy. Miles Zuckerman, when he does Ashrei, if you listen closely, he adds in the Nun line. He learned it, of course, because it's Miles. So Miles, who's super Jew. Miles learned the N line and actually does it when he gets to that part in the thing. I don't do that, but it would also mess up the whole acrostic for us, but in the song. But it's cool. So the Septuagint has the N line in it. It doesn't destroy everything for me, but it lets us know that there are older versions of the Bible. And when you're a conservative rabbi, or when you're studying to be a conservative rabbi, this is what we do. We study the author. We not only study older versions of the Bible that we have today, we actually ask the question, who wrote it? So I just told you that the conservative movement used to be called the Positive Historical Movement. Anyone who took my History of Judaism class 1 billion years ago. And one of the, like when you study the 5 books of Moses, supposedly, originally, they said there were 4 authors of the 5 books of Moses. I know you can say it's God, it's fine. Or you could also say J, E, P, and D. What is J, E, P, and D? J is Jehovah, Yud, Hey, and whenever God is referred to as Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. E is Elohim, whenever God's referred to as Elohim. And those are 2 different kind of gods. One God's like why does God seem sometimes to be like, I'll kill y'all? And then sometimes God gives you big hugs and like a warm blanket. Well, maybe they're 2 different authors. One's in a good mood and one's in a bad mood. The P is the priestly code. We're like, we got a great story going on. We got Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And all of a sudden, we got like 2.5 books of what do the priests wear and how many bolts and nuts are in a holy temple. And then that's the priestly code. And then the D, the last book is just a repeat of everything. The Deuteronomy means the second Talmud. So when you study the Bible or the Torah in rabbi school, they actually ask you what part, who wrote each part. Is this a J section? This is an E section. This is a P section. This is a D section. Isaiah, most scholars say at least 4 different authors for the book of Isaiah. How do they say that one? Not based on J, E, P, and D. How do you study something historically? You ask, what did the author know? If the author says, I'm going to make it up a little, but if the author says the Babylonians are coming to destroy the Holy Temple. And yeah, that works. The Babylonians are coming to destroy the Holy Temple. And when the world ends, God will make a second temple. Well, what does the author know? The author knows Babylonians and the temple being destroyed, but does not know the temple's going to be rebuilt. So, by the way, the temple was rebuilt 70 years later, not that long ago. After that, we can mark that author. And if the author mentions 3 kings, but not the 4th king, we can kind of mark that author as when it was written, by what does the author know? Yeah, so that's what it means to study biblical criticism. It means to study it critically. When was it written? Yeah, and so that's biblical criticism, which leads to, I can't do a drum roll, the Dead Sea Scrolls. Now, the Dead Sea Scrolls, I'm going to share a screen for you. Well, first I'm going to tell you a story. Once upon a time, let's make it 1947. Is this a true story? Maybe, unlikely. In 1947, these 2 Bedouin boys in the middle of the desert are playing ball, and they're playing catch. And one of them throws the ball and it goes behind the back, and it rolls into a cave. And he goes into this cave and he finds the Dead Sea Scrolls. Now, it's not as crazy as it sounds, in that, what do Jews do when we're done with a book of the Bible or prayer book? We just started off with that. You bury it. For us, we filled up the Mount Lebanon Cemetery burial place. Now we use one in the North Hills. But in Israel, you don't bury, you use caves, right? The cave of Machpelah to bury, Abraham buried Sarah in a cave. So supposedly, and by the way, this part is true, that they found a cave, and in the cave were scrolls, from 2,000 years ago. And, it was the right humidity level or whatever. They were pretty well preserved. I'm going to show you pictures of it. They're not perfect, but that was a find. And since 1947, they've been studying it, recording it. They're not done yet. They found thousands of scrolls. But what's fascinating is because they started recording everything, and now we have computers. It's much more fun. I'll show you online. If you ever go to Israel, one of my favorite places to visit, okay, don't go with Federation. Okay, but they show you all the stuff that you really could do without, and then you skip over, like, God forbid, the Dead Sea Scrolls or Masada. Go to Israel. If you're going to go to Israel for your 15th time, go with Federation. But if you're only going to go once in your life, go with anyone else. And plus, they almost killed like 3 people. So, because they just work you like hell. We don't believe in hell. So, but back to the Dead Sea Scrolls. In the Israel Museum in Jerusalem, they have the Dead Sea Scrolls on display. And it's one of my favorite places to visit when I visit Israel, because I find the Dead Sea Scrolls empowering. That I'm studying the book of Isaiah, Ezekiel, or whatever, and it's the same thing that I'm looking at from 2,000 years ago. It doesn't ruin it for me. It actually, it makes me feel like even more like, this is pretty cool. Like, I feel like this is good stuff. It's funny, I found something older than that, but I'll get to it in a moment. So the Dead Sea Scrolls, let me show you. I'm going to share. I think it's already up. No, let me get to the Dead Sea Scrolls. Dead Sea Scrolls. Okay, zoom. Share screen. Dead Sea Scrolls, share. Okay. And now you can see my application. Okay. Israel Museum, Jerusalem, the Great Isaiah Scroll. I'll go back for a second. There's different scrolls. There's the Great Isaiah Scroll, the Temple Scroll, not much left of that, War Scroll, Kamiyaru Scroll, Commentary on Habakkuk Scroll. They just, and the scrolls that they've really taken apart, the Great Isaiah Scroll is what they call this one from You can see my pointer moving around here. Like, this is from the Qumran Cave. By the way, when you're in the bus and you're going down to Masada, they always go, there's the Qumran Cave, knowing that's on your 4th visit to Israel. So, but it's just a cave. 1st century BCE, that's year 0, by the way, written on parchment, okay, and blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to show you one a little closer. Here we go. And I'm going to make it even bigger so you can see some words. Okay, and maybe too big. I'll make it here, wait. Okay, let's just go to the middle. Should be a little, yeah, a little better words. And then I'm going to move back up a little. Well, okay. So you're looking at this thing and you're like, it's Hebrew-ish. Remember, it's 2,000 years ago. So I could say that's probably Hayinu, but I could also compare that. This is, by the way, here, I'm going to back up a little. This is, let's see here. It's kind of cute. Chapter 39, right? Okay, come on. I think I have to go back one more. Yeah, okay. So good. The book of Isaiah. Okay, so here it goes. So this is the book of Isaiah, chapter 40, verse 19. Okay, and then I'm going to move it closer and let me move it up. So you can see this is pretty intact. Yeah. Now they didn't find any like completely Bible connected, because it was all different scrolls. So they found pieces of different scrolls and they put it together like a puzzle. So, if you look at it too close, you're like, what are the, okay, fine. You're going to look at this and go, that doesn't look like Hebrew, but Vishamru, okay. And you can see the Shlishi. You get used to reading it. Eretz, just Eretz, and then it is Hebrew. It's just read. It's how they wrote Hebrew 2,000 years ago. So what I love about the Dead Sea Scrolls is I can compare that to our version today, and it's very close. There are going to be little letters or missing words every now and then, but it's pretty close to what we study today, and I find that cool. I'm a Dead Sea Scroll fan. I love the Dead Sea Scrolls. And so if you really wanted to study the Dead Sea Scrolls, you can go online under deadseascrolls.com or something, and you can actually compare. You can see they'll put in some forms, they'll actually put the verses next to each other and you kind of compare it. It's kind of what we used to do with the Septuagint. Dead Sea Scrolls are actually newer. They're not newer than the Septuagint, but we have a copy of the Septuagint. Dead Sea Scrolls, there's no like great book right now. It's the internet's the best place to find the Dead Sea Scrolls. They just started releasing these online. So here's the deal. Anyone remember? Now, this is before Neil took over Adult Ed. I feel it was the first Mondays. We brought in this speaker who visited the Jewish Samaritan community in Israel. Okay, it was a while ago, and pre-pandemic, but pre-pandemic. And he kind of lived with these Israelite Samaritans. They live in the West Bank. They don't consider themselves Jewish. They don't consider themselves Christian. They call themselves Samaritans, which, by the way, I'm going to be studying the New Testament eventually. And we just saw this with Samaritans. The idea of, a Samaritan is someone who lives in the north of the territories, but back then. So the Samaritans are neat people. I just fell in love with this concept. Samaritans they don't just not accept the Talmud. They only have the 5 books of Moses. They don't even have prophets and writings, which says to me, they might be pretty old if they only have 5 of our books, not the 24 books, and certainly not our new version. And what's neat about it is I have a copy of it, the Samaritan Bible, okay? And the Samaritan Torah is very similar to ours. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, and the verses kind of follow, but they have like full verses, full paragraphs that are not in ours. But here's another one. This is going to be a higher level, but do you know that when we study the 10 Commandments in Exodus, there's 2 versions of the 10 Commandments, Exodus and Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy is the second telling of the 10 Commandments. And in Exodus, Moses gets the 10 Commandments. There is one difference between the Exodus commandment and the Deuteronomy commandment. Okay, and it's when it comes to Shabbat. One says, Shamor et Shabbat, guard Shabbat, like my wife's name, Shomer, to guard. And the other one says, Zachor et Shabbat, remember Shabbat. And the rabbis just think that's fascinating. Why does it say Shamor in one and Zachor in another? Guard in one and remember in another. What is God trying to teach us? And I used to say a long time ago, and of course I think I'm right, I used to say a long time ago, I bet, I can't prove this, until now. I bet it was used to be the same word once, and over time, one of them got messed up. I could show you how a really old shin could become a Zion, and just, and I could never prove it. But because I study the Bible critically, I'm open to the idea that even though the rabbis now, here's the key, that what do the rabbis do? Because they can't say what I'm saying. They can't say there's a mistake in the Bible. That's a no-no in Orthodox world. But here's the deal. On Lecha Dodi, Friday night, Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabala shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad shamor v'zachor and zachor b'dibor echad in one word. What is it saying in the song? God spoke Shamor and Zachor at the same exact time, but we're humans, we can't hear two things at the same time. So God said Shamor and Zachor at the same time when God spoke to Moses, the Israelites, and therefore it says Shamor in one place and Zachor in the other. And I'm like, cute, but I don't accept it. Well, in the Israelite Samaritan Bible, it's the same word. It doesn't have a different word in both places, but it gets even better. That just proves me right. If I accept this as maybe an even older version of the Torah, but it gets even better. They have 11 commandments. There's an 11th commandment in this one. And the 11th commandment is, bad drum roll, the 11th commandment in the Israelite Samaritan Bible, Torah, not Bible, I can't call it the Bible, it's just the 5 books. The Israelite Samaritan Bible, Torah, the 11th commandment is, and you shall build the holy temple on Mount Gerizim. Now, we did not build the Holy Temple on Mount Gerizim. We built it somewhere else. And the Torah in our Bible never says where to build it. It's just like, build this where I tell you you're going to build it, and then never tells us where to build it. So then we built the temple. Guess what? Somehow that verse falls out of our Torah, probably because we didn't build it there. That's just a guess, and I know it's blasphemous what I'm saying. Now the Muslims who built the Temple Dome would love what I'm saying, but if you go to Israel, to the West Bank, you can find Israelite Samaritans sacrificing animals. They're old school, sacrificing animals on Mount Gerizim. And Mount Gerizim is mentioned in the Bible. There's a place where Moses stands on a mountain, the Levites stand on a mountain, and they're like, blessings, and the people in the valley going, amen, and curses, amen. And we just had Adele read a Torah reading a couple weeks ago, and she's like, let's recreate it. And everyone stood up, and every time she said something, everyone goes, amen. It was very exciting. But the idea here is that there are older versions of the Bible. This doesn't ruin it for me, does not ruin the Bible for me. It doesn't even make it less authoritative. Actually, it makes it more authoritative in that it's been around for a long time. Do I accept that it's the oldest version? I don't. I know that they have found Akkadian sources, like old, really old things. By the way, the oldest, I told you Dead Sea Scrolls is about 2,000 years ago. They did find a piece of pottery, I want to say that's about 2,500 years old, a 2,500-year-old piece of pottery with, they only found a little piece with a verse from the Bible in it, which I think that's pretty cool. That's getting close to the original. I really want to find the original, and then it's signed by someone, and I just made it up. My name is Bob, but, and don't worry, religion can handle that. It's whenever they find something that proves we're wrong, we'll just say it's a hoax. Like dinosaurs. So the idea here is that the Bible is important, and it's authoritative. And the part that we're not doing yet, well, okay, I'll tell you for a second, since we're doing okay, is there were books that didn't make it into our Bible. We call them I think I actually talked about this in the Torah section, actually, but the Apocrypha. I told you about the book of Maccabees. And the book of Maccabees for Jews is in the Apocrypha, a set of books, biblical books that didn't make it into the Bible. I don't know how better to say it. They're Jewish. They're written around the same time, but they did not get into our Bible. Some of them you might have heard of before: Book of Judith, Book of Tobit, Book of Enoch. Enoch is one of my favorite. Ben Sirach, Maccabees, most famous of them all, are biblical books that look like the Bible, taste like the Bible, were written around the Bible, but did not make it into the Bible. So what does it make them? It still makes them Jewish. It definitely tells our story, but it's not authoritative. So Jewishly speaking, we wouldn't say the book of Maccabees came from God, but we might say the book of Ruth came from God. So the Apocrypha have some great stuff. When we study more, as we keep on going in this intro, when we get to hell, I mentioned hell a couple of times today. So hell, someone's going to say, hell's not Jewish. Well, hell's in the book of Enoch. The book of Enoch is not in our Bible, but it is in the Apocrypha. It is Jewish. It didn't make the cut, but it is a book that rabbis studied. They probably didn't know it was in the Bible because our Bible wasn't sent until the year 800, the Masoretic text. So the idea is the book of Enoch, which we'll look at eventually when we get to heaven and hell in our class, but is in the Apocrypha. And so the Bible is our source code, but it's not. We are not the people of the Bible. I hate to tell you, ruin it for you, or even the Torah. Again, if you follow every word of the Torah, you're not going to be Jewish. You'll be Torish, and you'll probably be in jail. So the idea here is that the Bible is important to us, but and you can call it holy. It came from God, but what is going to be most important is what happens next, and that's the Talmud. And by the way, in between the Talmud and the Bible, and that's why I kind of gave you the key already, is the Apocrypha, books that were written in between 3,000 years ago and 2,000 years ago. When they write the Talmud, they have the book of Enoch in hand, even though it didn't make it into our Bible. So there are going to be, so the rabbis can be influenced by the Apocrypha, even though it's not in our Bible. So that is the 24 books of the Bible. We can talk for a little. I have 8 minutes until I have to go pick up Ellie from wherever she is, Carnegie Mellon, because she's smart and takes after her mother. And so questions on the Bible, Bible, Septuagint, Dead Sea Scrolls, questions, thoughts, comments.
A question, but
Go ahead, Ellen.
I did have a class on the Quran
Oh,
at
good.
CMU, and I couldn't believe the similarities. A lot of it is based on our religion. It was an amazing class. It was a real eye opener. We think we're so different, but we really aren't.
That's you might have heard my sermon, but yeah, that's the truth, and that's how I teach it. It's actually the people I offend the most are Jews, right? So if I say to a mixed crowd that we all share the same Bible, the Old Testament, what we just studied now, but we all have a new version, new and improved. We have the Talmud, they have the Old Testament, and they have the Quran, and in a way, all three things, the Quran, the New Testament, and the Talmud, are commentaries on the original. The Talmud is the Jewish take of the Bible, the New Testament is the Christian take on the Bible, and the Quran is the Muslim take on the Bible. And the Quran is the newest one, so the Quran can comment on Christianity and Judaism, right? So because they're the new kids in town. New kids on the block. They're the new kids on the block are the Muslims. Yeah, and again, if you study Islam, Muhammad loved the Jews. He just loved Jews. He really thought that all the Jews would join him. And we talked about this before. Muhammad's first thought was to make Yom Kippur the holiest day of the year for the Muslims. And then we didn't join him, and then he got mad. But they all do. Martin Luther, not the original Martin Luther, not Lutheranism, not Martin Luther King Jr. He thought the Jews would join him too. And when we didn't, he became a flaming anti-Semite. So yeah, the Quran is very Jewish. And by the way, that's in another class when I offended people, I talked about ISIS. And, ISIS is so horrible. They kill man, women, children. They knock down everything. I said, they're just following the Bible game plan. Where if I want to offend people, I'll just say we're the original ISIS. Yeah, but we evolved, and I believe. Well, I hope we evolved. Did you say we didn't, Neil?
No, I said they didn't.
Not yet. But by the way, they're they're so new, right? They're how old is Islam? We have 1,000 years on them, 2,500. With the truth is, they could actually, okay, good, participant enabled. Oh, I don't even know how you did that. Okay, but we might have been bloodier than them shorter time. I mean, they have to catch up. They will evolve. And by the way, when I say not all Muslims are terrorists. I have to explain this to Jews all the time. Most Muslims are good people. I think I can say that as a fact. Yeah, and there's a lot of Muslims. There's more than Jews. There's a lot of Muslims in the world, most of them, but they don't get like planes landing every day. The planes, you don't ever get a list in the newspaper of all the planes that landed. You only get the list of the planes that crashed. And so we only get a list of the Muslims who, kill Jews or kill each other or whatever. You don't get a list of all the good ones. Yeah, that doesn't sell. So yeah. All right. What do you got, Neil? You're going to say something and then
I was just going to say, from ages ago, I took a class on the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it seems much more apocalyptic, the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Yeah.
And why didn't more like, the War Scroll and stuff like that, why do you think those never made it into our Bible? I love the War Scroll. It should have made it in.
I truly believe it just missed I'm not supposed to, I mean, growing up, I never could say this. I just think it missed the deadline. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason of why books made into the Bible. Like we're studying the Song of Songs, like, why did they put this in? I think they just put anything they found into the Bible. I'm not supposed to be saying these things, but I really think the Bible, they put everything in. It's like, hey, we found it, let's stick it in. Or, and then Rabbi Alex is trying to turn in his article, but misses the deadline. Like, okay, you have to put in the next Bible. So I think that what we're seeing with those scrolls is, I'm not so sure that the editor, whoever the editor is of the Bible we have today, I just don't think they had it. I think certainly I think they edited out certain parts, but I don't think they would have had a problem putting an apocalypse. I mean, there's some apocalypse in ours too. The book of Daniel is very apocalyptic. That's why the Christians love the book of Daniel, but it is in our Bible.
I thought I read, so I read that book. What's the 4 letters again?
3.
Good book.
What?
Who wrote the Bible?
Oh, okay.
And it's a great book to read. They talk about, J.E. and all that.
Oh, the JEP and D. Yep.
And I thought they said, was it Jeremiah redacted it? Who do you think redacted? When do you feel the Bible was redacted?
I don't believe any of these guys really existed. I think it's historical fiction. But notice I said fiction, historical fiction. So I think I do learn something from all the Bible books, and I don't have to throw God away. But I don't really believe in Isaiah existed or Jeremiah. I don't have to. Ezra and Nehemiah. Ezra is usually credited for editing everything because it's one of the last books in the Bible, and supposedly he comes back to Israel and builds the second temple, which we're right now studying on Wednesday mornings. But I don't have a name of the guy. I'm supposed to say God did. God is the editor of the Bible. But I don't have a problem with it. Jeremiah, I mean, if you take the guy Jeremiah as like he really lived, he lived through the destruction of the Holy Temple. But the Bible, there's stuff in our Bible that it talks about the Babylonian exile. I mean, way into the Babylonian exile. But it talks about King Cyrus and Darius. I mean, Jeremiah's long dead by the time these guys come along. So I don't believe that a guy named Jeremiah who lived at the destruction of the Holy Temple saw that. Because they do mention later on, as we're studying on Wednesday mornings, they mention Greeks and Romans. They actually start using Roman words, Greek words in our Bible. And our Bible, what we're studying right now, we're at Ezra and Nehemiah. There's sections written in Aramaic, again, the vernacular. So it's fascinating as the Bible goes along. You can also, again, studying it critically, if it's written in a modern language, it's not the ancient Hebrew, and literarily it says things that that we can relate to more than the old stuff. So I don't know about Jeremiah. Ezra is usually the guy who's credited, but I don't need an Ezra to know that I have a Bible in hand. I'll just say the Masoretes, and call it a day. But it's and JEP and D, that's kind of old stuff. That's 100 and 150-year-old stuff. That's also been kind of edited over the years. I think there's a new letter. I don't know what the new letter is. There's JEP and D and like something.
N.
Huh? N. Is it N?
I don't know, but N's been getting a lot of bad vibes tonight, so I'm voting N.
All right. Well, N is a good letter. So it is
There's another
8:01.
thing to add to the confusion.
Yeah. What do you got,
Okay,
Helen?
so I'm taking another class too.
Cool.
We gotta go back to who invented writing.
That's
I know, and I'm taking this Chinese class, because the Hebrew letters, they all came from the Canaanites. They would use forms that would resemble what they're looking at. Okay, so if you want to go back far enough, Greek took some of these letters. We could be having people add to the Bible who are having different forms of writing and are making different words only because this is how it progressed.
Yeah. It's and studying the beginning of writing and letters, and and how we spoke, it can be different. I'm just going to put something in the chat box, paste. Got it. Let me see. This is going to work? Number 7. Let's see if this comes out. Okay, our next class is Wednesday, October 26th, 7 p.m. Zoom, class number 7. We've had 6 so far on the Talmud and Midrash. So, yes, I will not advertise it this way to the public or I'll be murdered. But I could say, if I really wanted to be crazy, I would say the Talmud, the Jewish New Testament. But boy,
What's the date? Hold
that's
on.
all Rabbi Schiff would need. That'd be it. So Wednesday, October 26th, 7 p.m. on Zoom, number 7 Talmud and Midrash, because it was supposed to be on Sunday, but I think I'm supposed to be in Philadelphia that day. I don't know why you have to keep going to Philadelphia.
Visits there.
Yep, I'm going. Huh? Oh, is that?
Are you going to be out of town for Wednesday morning class again that day?
No, I'll be back that day. I'm back Tuesday or something. All right. Talk to you. Okay, so everyone have a great night. I got to go drive a half hour to past Carnegie. I have to go to like Baker Square to pick up my daughter. Okay, she's doing robotics.
Have fun.
Nerd. Here it goes.